Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know this isn't the first video for the day. In fact, it's the third video for the day. I will be brief. A few months ago, a bill was introduced in the US Congress to direct the President Donald Trump to take a closer look at South Africa. Effectively, the bill argued that the president should identify the factions within the ANC, or at least what they refer to as the governing party of the ANC, to see which of these factions would qualify for sanctions, as well as reviewing the relationship, both trade and otherwise, that America has with the United States. At the time, the bill sort of was introduced in the subcommittee, and not a lot of noise was made. Everyone that sort of spoke on what these bills look like and what could happen with these bills said that it will probably be months before this bill actually gets out of subcommittee, if it even gets out of subcommittee at all. Less than a month later, we learned that not only did the bill get into the subcommittee on the floor, but it passed, absolutely passed, with both sides actually voting, for at least some of the Democrats also voting to pass the bill. That was already a big signal for a lot of people in the United States that knows a lot more about how the United States system works. But at the time, Joel Pollak, who is the man who actually revealed this story, did make the point that unless this bill gets some kind of backing from a bigger person within the Republican Party, because yes, they have seniority and more senior members have a lot more pull within the Republican Party. So unless they can get someone to co-sponsor the bill, or another bill gets introduced on the Senate side of things, the bill is most likely not going to make it through, just because Congress has a lot of stuff that they vote on, and usually you require some sort of backroom deal to get these bills passed. Well, worst fears have now finally been realized. Senator Kennedy has now introduced a Senate bill that also seeks to punish South Africa. The bill specifically calls it requires a comprehensive review of the bilateral US-South Africa relationship and a certification from the president on whether South Africa undermines US national security interests. That one is super important, because if South Africa is found to be guilty of undermining US national security interests, South Africa may find itself being declared a terrorist or a rogue state by the United States, which would immediately trigger immense sanctions on South Africa. Furthermore, this one asks, require a classified list of South African government officials and members of South Africa's ruling party, the African National Congress, eligible for sanctions under the Global Magnitsky Act. Now, this one is where it differs from the previous bill in Congress. The previous bill simply said that the president needed to identify factions within the ANC. This bill asks for all members of the ANC to be identified that would be eligible for global international sanctions. And then finally, end South Africa's eligibility to benefit from the African Growth and Opportunities Act. That one doesn't matter as much, although I think it's in there just in case another president might want to bring back the African Growth and Opportunities Act. South Africa would still not be eligible for that act as a result of these new legislations. The fact that we now have two members of the United States government, both in Senate and in the Congress, asking for this to be looked at, introducing bills to basically direct the president to take this further, suggests that it will most likely pass, and Joel Pollak makes the exact same case. Now, specifically, the press conference from Senator Kennedy read as followed. In particular, South African officials have inflamed tensions with the United States by appointing Ibrahim Rasool, a radical official who hosted senior Hamas officials in South Africa and described President Trump as a white supremacist as its ambassador to the United States. Its government has further glorified anti-Israel terrorists, blamed Israel for October 7th terror attacks, and threatened to arrest and strip the citizenship of Israeli South Africans serving in the Israeli Defense Force. The South African regime has also repeatedly aligned itself with US adversaries in Europe and Asia, hosting joint naval exercises with Russia and China, and allowing a US-sanctioned Russian cargo ship to dock on its shores. It has benefited extensively from China's Belt and Road Initiative, becoming reliant on Chinese-linked firms that the United States has restricted due to national security threats. That's the gist of it. Effectively, what this means, and this is where I'm sort of at a point now where I'm a little bit more afraid of these sanctions, because originally it genuinely looked as if President Trump wasn't going to target South Africa as a whole, but rather just the officials of the ANC. It may now get to a point, thanks to our government's repeated infringements, even after the United States has made it super clear that you guys need to stop aligning yourselves with terrorist organizations. It shouldn't be that hard. Just don't go to Iran. It's as simple as that. More specifically, if you are going to go to Iran, don't pledge military alliance with Iran. And then if one of your officials do pledge military alliance with Iran, how about you punish him rather than saying, oh, we did nothing of the sort, he did it all by himself, but then finding him not guilty of any transgression after he comes back. It would have been that simple. Now the ANC has effectively played the game of going, America, do what you can. See if we care. This means that the president, at least President Trump, may not have another option. He may look at South Africa and go, look, these guys are not only in bed with all of our enemies, but they have now become an enemy themselves by pledging military alliance to Iran, by constantly being friendly with China and Russia, both of whom are currently adversaries of the United States. Now, before you go, well, we are a country, we can do whatever we want. Of course we can. That's the whole point, right? We're a sovereign nation. We get to make our own decisions. But just because you're a sovereign nation doesn't mean that you're free from the consequences of the decisions that you make. And America is a sovereign nation in and of themselves. So America, in the same vein, has every right to say to South Africa, hey, if you want to trade with us, if you want to do business with us, here are our rules. If you don't want to play by those rules, that's perfectly fine. We can't force you, but then we don't have to trade with you. We don't have to give you aid. We don't have to work with you. And the fact of the matter is, the Americans have far more sort of non-ammunition or war resources than what South Africa has. They can cripple South Africa in a way that we can't, right? We can't clap back. And just as an aside, yesterday I was watching Dawie Rood, who spoke at the BizNews conference, and in his speech, he actually makes the point that right now South Africa sits at officially 75% debt to GDP. If the actual number, if you include all of the provincial debt of South Africa, that number sits closer to 85%. 25% of all of the debt currently in South Africa, the rand debt, is owned by foreign investors, so not local, foreign investors, and the vast majority of that is owned by American investors. If Donald Trump wanted to destroy South Africa overnight, all they have to do is tell all asset managers in the United States, you're no longer allowed to own government debt in South Africa. This immediately means that all of these asset managers go to the Reserve Bank and say, buy our debt. It's guaranteed. The government can't not buy it. They have to buy back all of that debt. This will tank the currency pretty much overnight. It happened in the 80s in South Africa. It will happen again. It will effectively shoot up our national debt. It will crush the rand. And this is something that Donald Trump could do at the flick of a pen. He doesn't even need oversight from the Senate or the Congress to do so. And since Congress and Senate seems hell-bent on punishing South Africa, he probably would get that okay, the green light from them if they wanted to do it. Fundamentally, this ANC, in their current iteration, has now, I think, become the number one enemy of South Africa. They have consistently made decisions that really go against the national interests of our nation. I am not arguing that South Africa should be great and amazing friends of America. We don't have to be, but we don't have to be enemies either, right? We can literally remain neutral, and there's plenty of countries that have remained completely neutral in all of this who aren't in trouble with the Americans, nowhere near as much as we are. So I'll keep you guys apprised of everything that's happening. I will keep my finger on the pulse, and you'll know as soon as I know more. But that's the story. If you like my coverage and you think more people should have access to the content that I make, please consider hitting that like button and hitting that subscribe button. and leaving a comment, because I genuinely promise you it does help. I can see the difference when you guys do that, how YouTube supports the videos and pushes the videos to more people. So I really do appreciate that. Then a massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons and the YouTube channel members for continuing to support this channel. I really appreciate all of you. To become a member, just hit the link, just hit the join button below this video, or hit the link in the description down below. As always, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.